Hello everyone, I hope you've all brought your Piranacons to today's lesson. Yeah, I'm just going to dive right in there and start talking about this behemoth, or behemoth. How do I pronounce that word? I don't actually know. Yeah, here it is in its glory, out of the box. You know, I only did the unboxing the other day. It was a bit sort of soon to be recording this video, I don't know. So now I've had some time to enjoy it, form some opinions about it. I guess the main opinion is that while it is sort of colossal and quite interesting the way it's made out of all different sea creatures, etc, etc, I cannot stand the colours. Oh, it looks just... the pink is what I don't like. The fact there are two shades of pink on this. It's like, this is the most, apart from Seawing and Nautilator, who I think is my favourite, but I'm not going to combine him with this lot because, you know, you get essentially 6 limbs to go on Snaptrap. So one guy can be a gun, but there are just no good ways that the guns can actually be held because of the way their hands are set up. It's just stuff in the way, it doesn't work. And, you know, in his bio, you know, it says like he's always left out, so he can just be the loser that they all don't like, and he can sit in the corner, but he's actually my favourite. All of them apart from this guy and Seawing, they look horrible. They look like the most emasculated bunch of robots I've ever seen. That's such camp colour schemes, it's like, oh. Yeah, I could make the really non-PC comment of, you know, this is the gayest combiner team I've ever seen. But, you know, 80s evil monster robots, I guess the colour scheme sort of fits. There is definitely a very seafood vibe to it. They do look, you know, at least this sort of hues of pink and turquoise and whatever. They look like brightly coloured marine creatures, so I guess you can let them off for that. But when they're robots, they're meant to be destructive machines of total destruction. Then being coloured like this, it's just something to laugh at, really. But before I break it down and look at the individual bots, apart from Nautilator, yeah, Piranacon himself is pretty impressive, pretty hefty. I have, well, the only other sort of G1 combiner I have is RID Ruination, and that's just, of course, you know, Combaticon repaint. This guy feels bigger than that, even though it's still the same sort of Scramble City affair, so I guess that's cool. And of course he's got all this beautiful chrome and the sword and these things up here. I don't know what they are, but they're shiny. I imagine that Piranacon uses this to dazzle his prey and the ocean floor, and the sun comes glinting through the clear tropical water and shines off of these things and his sword into the eyes of whatever he's hunting. Then he can then go in for the kill and chop them up with his oddly, I don't know, is it meant to be like fins or bones, or I don't know what's going on with this sword. It's mildly trident-ish, which is quite nicely underwatery. What I don't quite understand is the way it's sculpted to look like it's on fire. There's like all this sort of flame detailing around it, but it would be underwater. That's cool. I'm not going to question that sort of logic. I've watched enough SpongeBob to know that fire can exist underwater. But yeah, overall, I like him, I guess, in this mode. Despite the fact that there are numerous fins and arms and tentacles and things hanging off it. Just makes it look a bit more sea monstery, you know. It's some sort of abomination to crawl out of the darkest depths and, yeah, ravages the land in a sort of Lovecraftian manner, I assume. Only problem I have with him, he's really sort of front heavy. You go stand him up and he'll just sort of lean forward, possibly ominously, you know, like he's sort of standing there looming over something, but it just looks like he's just going to keel over any minute. So that's not quite so good. Just while I break these things up, I just want to add that while I mentioned, you know, in the old unboxing that this is meant to be like the slickest, best version of this set, and, you know, it should be a bit better than the G1 version, etc, etc. I didn't realise at the time that there were quite a few sort of noticeable differences between these and the originals. I guess the main one being Overbite here. In the G1 version, he would have been all sort of purple, while, you know, I guess, you know, actually it's probably a good thing they've changed it, because it does make a more sort of coherent overall colour scheme once you've got them combined, whatever, because he was the only one that had any purple on him. So, you know, there's a change there. I guess, really, as an individual robot, I would have preferred him to be purple, not pink. But, you know, it makes him coalesce with the rest of the team a bit better, so that's good. And the other significant change will be Snaptrap's head. That's meant to be black, but they've just left it green. and I'm not sure how I feel about that. It's a bit of laziness really, because it is all just green plastic with the turtle head assembly stuff there, but it doesn't really bother me that much. I know it's bothered a few people, but you know, paint it if it really bothers you. Of course, I mentioned that the stickers were better, quote unquote, in the unboxing. That's sort of what I read. That seemed to be the sort of consensus, that people thought they looked better. I don't know why. For the most part, they're pretty badly applied, I have to say. Some of them, you know, they're not really stuck on quite properly. They're not really straight overall. And they just seem to be put in places that aren't actually quite so good. I mean, on Seawing here, he's got one on his chest, right in the middle, on the sort of combiner peg strut that comes out. Because of where it is, as soon as you sort of attach this peggy bit to anything, it is scuffed up the sticker. And then the stickers themselves, I don't think they look better than G1 stickers, because they're hardly shiny at all. That was a really nice thing about old G1 stickers, that they're shiny and, you know, they're cut really nicely. You've got the symbols against the silver background, all that sort of thing. And none of that really exists here. They're mildly sort of silverish, but you know, in the weakest possible way. And then quite a few of the ones that are just single Decepticon symbols, you can see that the sort of, I'm going to call it a cookie cutter, that they were used to cut out the sticker to be the correct shape, wasn't quite straight. So they don't look good, to be honest, the stickers. I can imagine a proper sort of, you know, repro label set would make these look a bit better. Sudden lighting change! Yes, it's not a good idea to film videos as the sun goes down right in front of you. So yeah, there are a few things about this set that aren't quite so good, but I guess the best thing is the fact that it is like truly like 110% complete. You get absolutely everything here, including, you know, all these stupid black stands that I've got really no use for. I mean, I guess they're quite good for displaying the things as if they're floating there, or you can have them set up as like gun emplacements for their weapon modes. But I think the best way to use them is like this. To craft yourself a squid gun. That's the kind of 80s insanity that I can get behind. But yeah, I suppose it's quite cool that the stands break up and each of the little sort of limb guys gets a big, gigantic, a massive gun. It's just really too big for any of them. And while you got that, it does end up meaning that you get these odd bits left over that you've got nothing really to do with. But hell, you know, extra plastic. It's not really a bad thing, even though I will have to find somewhere to keep all of this. So it's pretty clear that it's, you know, a properly, completely complete set. But what about the quality of the figures themselves? Ew. I mean, I suppose it's to be expected when these things are 20 odd years old. The quality isn't great. There are, I mean, I'm looking at Scalor here, probably my least favourite. There are, you know, flashing marks on a few places that could have been dealt with a bit better, especially on his fists here. Some of the joints don't really sort of work properly, you know, he's got his tail here that I assume is meant to sort of stay down there, but it wants to come up that way. Yeah, tolerances and things are a little bit all over the place. Some bits are tight, some bits are a little bit loose. Overall, it is pretty good, but you do get the feeling that, yeah, these are sort of old moulds now. And the quality of the plastic is starting to get towards the sort of knockoff end of quality. It's still good, it's okay, it's for what you'd expect for G1 figures from this time, I guess, but it's starting to go a little bit creaky. And then there's the sort of paint and everything. I mean, I've already mentioned the stickers. Looking at Scalor here, some of his ones are a bit wonky, or, you know, starting to come off already. The main problem with him I have is the fact that I took him apart from Piranacon in the box and he was fine, but when I put him into one of these stupid stands and pulled him out, I noticed all the paint on his nose had come off. So this thing already looks like it's 20 odd years old and I've only had it for 5 minutes. So that wasn't great, Hasbro, really, was it? So I guess, yeah, that's me talking about Scalor. He's a weird coelacanth type thing that is just this awful cerise shade of pink that it just doesn't look, you know, threatening at all. Sad. Let's move on to someone more interesting, Tentakill, who probably is, you know, the second worst of the set, but as soon as I saw this thing I couldn't help but laugh. The robot mode, it's not too bad. I mean, again, he's mostly cerise. Is that what this colour is? I don't know. I'm going to keep calling it that though. Yeah, he's really, really sort of broad-shouldered, but he's mostly pink. But somehow, because he's got such a square G1-ish looking robot mode and gigantic shoulders and his tiny head, he does look sort of cool and beefy in an odd way. And all of these only move at the arms. None of them have legs that work at all. But for some reason I quite like just that little sort of detented movement in their tiny little stubby arms, and there's something nice about these somehow. It's hard to describe, but yeah. Tentacle's funny, not only in the fact that he has these sort of odd tetrahedron boobs, but you transform him and this is like the silliest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's a squid octopus but tentacled monster. Just look at it, look at the face on it. And stubby little tentacles all on one thing. And he's got legs and he's got some more tentacles like coattails down the back. It's just gloriously sort of 80s cartoon sea monster. It looks like it should be in the Snorks or something. It just made me grin for ages as soon as I saw it, and it's so bad it's good, I guess. And I don't know whether it's the best thing or the worst thing about this guy. His bio mentions he has a perverse pleasure in crushing people with his tentacles. Skirting the bounds of dubious Japanese fiction there, I think. Let's stop talking about that. Next up is Overbite. I've mentioned how he's not purple. He's not really bad. He's, you know, got these odd arms sticking out of his feet, and his legs look really just too small, and all of the detail on his legs is stickers. He's got good working arms, you know, he's got elbows, he's got shoulders, which is a lot for a G1 combiner guy, I guess, so I like him. And he turns into a cool sort of shark that has legs, so I guess that's cool. But he probably has the worst problem with sort of tolerances, because he's got his gun, which is bright pink. You meant to stick it on the sort of underside of his shark throat, but it won't stay there, it just won't. The hole is too big. Well, actually no, I think the peg is too small, because when you put it that way round, and then, you know, that would make the weapon mode, it fits fine. Sea-Wing then, he's just really weird looking. He is one of the better coloured ones, but I don't know, his arms are really, really tight to move, especially his left one. I guess overall he's got a quite boxy, relatively good looking robot mode until you get below the waist, and it's like his crotch is made of the lower jaw of the manta ray. Yeah, and his legs are just sort of stumpy, odd pieces that, they just know what the hell's going on. I guess he's the only one that could say he has moving legs, but when these are meant to be legs, no, it doesn't work. That looks weird, but at least, you know, he is one of the slightly better looking ones. I like the manta ray mode with the forward swept wings, all these pointy bits like they could be missiles or claws or whatever. It just looks, you know, very G1-y. And it's, you know, just a little depth charge predecessor, isn't he? The eyes on the side and little tiny mouth, but for some reason he's got feet. Well, actually all of these sea creatures have feet. Yup, Nautilator is my favourite. He just seems to have the sort of best overall package here. His robot mode isn't really bad. Yeah, it's really kibbly with all the arms and all like the lobster stuff hanging off the back. And his legs are sort of ill-defined. But he's got quite a cool triple barrel gun. I have to say now that Nautilator is also my favourite because he was sort of the one that stuck in my mind. The Seacons were one of the first G1 combiner teams, apart from Devastators, that I ever learnt about from the old Dreamwave More Than Meets the Eye guidebooks. I got one of those and I had to get another, and I don't have all of them, but I've got a handful, and that taught me about most of G1. One of the first ones I got had the Seacons in, and even then, when I was like 10, I looked at them and thought, these things are so silly, look at the octopus one, ha ha ha. But Nautilator seemed cool, I was like, oh that's cool, he's a lobster. And the art for him looked cool in both modes, and the weapon mode, and everything. But it did sort of make a false picture of him in my mind, because I was expecting his gun to be huge, with probably 3 separate barrels and everything, and it's really tiny and nondescript. And his robot mode actually looks a bit sort of dumpy. I mean, his head is way further back than his shoulders actually are, which looks a bit weird. But he's got some good detailing, and you turn him into a lobster, and it's a good looking lobster, I have to say. I like all the detail, all this sort of stuff on his head that's all sort of segmented and, I don't know, scaly, ventish stuff. And the stickers on him, there aren't really many, but they look good. There's a nice big one on his front, and he's got pincers that move quite tightly, even though they were off in the box. I had to put these on. And again, he's got a mouth that you can open all the way and stick the gun in. And he's just cool. He just feels like the best one. Which I guess is good because he's never going to be combined. Well, I mean, you can combine him, but it's awkward. So it's good that he can be a standalone guy. Right then, on to Snaptrap. He's a completely psychotic, sadistic killer. But he's bright pink. So I don't know what to make of that. The sword looks good, yeah. The instructions fail to mention that you can use the Pyronicon chest piece as a shield, because it's got connectors on it that are the same as the combiner pegs for the little guys, and it just fits in his shoulder. It means you don't have to have a giant piece just hanging around, especially when it makes the back of his turtle mode. You know, you don't want to just put that somewhere and forget where it is. But he's quite good. Got some nice click in his arms. He's got some automorph in his fists when you sort of turn them from turtle to robot. So I guess for what he is, you know, he's pretty good. He feels like one of those sort of 88 big Decepticons, I guess. Especially with all the sort of bright pink / mauve he's got going on. Yeah, he just feels like one of those guys. One of those guys I probably want more, like Misfire or Trigger Happy or Ruckus, I don't know. But it's a bit of a shame that the bigger guy in the group still doesn't have fully functioning legs. But for some reason he does have tiny little heel flaps that you flip out, and they're meant to aid him in standing up because he's so back heavy. Oddly, they do. I have no idea how. Physics should prevent that from ever happening. So with a few nice clickety-G1 movements, you've got a big turtle. He's got an opening jaw. He looks very sinister and very angry with his turtle face poking out here. But then, of course, there's a secondary thing. You can poke it in. It's like it's gone in his shell. Haha. If the robot head didn't then poke out. You know, he's a big guy. He's got the action feature. Well, because I suppose most other combiner torsos would turn into a base and he can't. So he's got tom-tom guns, which is pretty good, I guess. But then you can stick the other gun on top and he becomes Mega Blastoise. Haha. Current Pokemon joke I'm attempting at there, because I know what I'm talking about. 2 guns is enough. You don't really need to go the whole attack mode hog here, but it's an option. I'd prefer leaving it like that. Just looks good. 2 guns, pow 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 pow. But yeah, he's got these sort of chrome tail flaps at the back. They seem to look right, but I don't know. It's almost like it's a turtle wearing a cape. So that was me talking for ages about the seacons. Yeah, there's a lot you get here, and I guess if I had paid any more than 20 quid, I think I would probably regret it, because while it's nice, it's a full G1 reissue set, they're just not really that good, you know. They are really silly and actually quite a lot of fun in the fact that they are so silly and bad. So yes, I burst out of the surf from that slightly salty endeavour to the depths. It's time to look at something else which I got this week, which I would have mentioned in the last video. Hold up, the camera's been moving by itself, that's odd. Yes, there's a Constructbot box over there. If you can see well enough, you'll tell it's for Starscream. When I finally saw that mine has to have a nice little display of reduced Transformers, and there was a hell of a lot of Constructbots in the bottom that are all reduced, I thought, yeah, let's pick up one of the smaller scale ones. I mean, they had the new Megatron and Hound and ones like that there. But I thought, no, I mean, I've got Wheeljack and Soundwave. I'd rather have something a little bit different. So I went for the Scouts and I got Starscream, even though I knew his head would not be painted properly. This is like bad quality control in the extreme, because every single version of this figure has this. Only that third of his face is painted black. Come on, does quality control not mean anything to you anymore, Hasbro? I would have expected like a stock recall of all of these so you can put out properly done ones, but it's like you haven't even noticed and certainly don't care. Well, I guess there's nothing new there. But the figure himself, I like it. I think I actually like this better than Wheeljack. He's certainly up there with Soundwave now as, you know, one of the better Constructbots. I've got him in the way he's supposed to be out of the box, but you know, you don't put the wings on his arms here, do you? You take them off and you stick them on his back so that they look right. There, much better. Oh wait. So yeah, Starscream is, you know, I certainly recommend it for £6.50. I mean, when you get in a figure that is essentially the same size as the Elite ones that come in their own special see-through case, I don't care. I mean, I'm going to keep the box for Starscream because of course I'm still going to need someone to keep him. So really having a case doesn't make much difference to me. Yeah, he's the same height, same skeleton, all of that. But somehow he feels a little bit better because maybe he is made out of smaller parts, I have to say. All of the armour pieces you've got here, they're less substantial than the ones that you might get in the, you know, next size up. Which I guess shows the cost difference. But yeah, all of these grey pieces, they're pretty much translucent. Put them under a bright light and you can see through them. Yeah, it's not great. But, you know, I can understand now where the big price difference comes from these being £10 and those being 15 when all the other ones have a few extra pieces in the case. The whole quality of the ones, you know, up from this is better in all the pieces basically. The skeleton's the same of course, and the fists and the head. But stuff like his feet, stuff like the bits on his shins and the bits on his like biceps and thighs, they're less substantial. You can just feel it's thinner plastic, there's not as much there. So, while that's bad in a way, I quite like it because it means that it feels like the joints work a bit better because there's not so much weight on them. I can feel that, you know, all the joints on this guy are going to hold up a bit better than they have on like Soundwave, and some of his bits are starting to get a bit loose and funny already. So, it's good, it's a good package. I like it. It's a bit more streamlined. You don't have all the stuff hanging off his arms or extra guns floating about the place. It's just a robot with some wings and a couple of guns you can turn into a jet and then just muck about with and make exactly how you might like to. Which of course I've already done, you know, I've stuck Wheeljack's wheels on here and made it like an F1 car or made it a bit like the Batmobile. There's a lot of things you can do with all these construct bots certainly, and now they're cheap again. They don't ever seem to be anywhere at full price for very long. Then I'd say get some more at Asda. Now there's another wave showing up. So despite the bad paint, I recommend Starscream. It just feels good. It's hard to describe. I like the fact there are less pieces here. I like the fact he's a bit less substantial and a bit lighter. I like it. And I can turn it vaguely into an Armada Starscream like that. Produce. Wow, that was quite a lot, wasn't it? I haven't stopped talking for a little while there and the sun's gone down and everything. Oh dear. Yes, that's your lot for this week. Don't know if I'll have anything to show you next week. I'm properly satisfied with everything I've got here and feel absolutely no need to go spending any more money. If anyone's wondering, I'm in the process of sort of doing a final edit. Well, final, I'll probably tweak it some more and then again. But I'm getting there with the Bionicle video I mentioned before. Only trouble is, the music that I've got for CD-ROM isn't in the format that Movie Maker can use, so I need to find an audio converter thing to change it into an MP3. So wish me luck with that, and goodbye.